What's up? My name is Bree. Welcome to my channel, Bree the Womanican. So I recently watched Tell Me You Love Me. I know you're probably thinking like, how does that tie into what this video is about? But I recently watched Tell Me You Love Me on Netflix, and if you don't know, it's about a woman who falls in love with a nonverbal disabled man, and it's a big deal. And I truly believed in what the woman was saying. I'm not going to remember the exact plot, but basically the man was unable to speak on his own, and he was unable to really control his movements on his own as well. So what his family decided to do for him was to hook him up with a facilitator for that. And that facilitator essentially is a person who helps the man point to certain, either it could be images, could be letters to spell out words or whatever it was. The facilitator provides the physical support to help the non-speaking person spell out these words and communicate. And they ended up falling in love, and the facilitator told the man's family. She was saying like, he's in love with me. He tells me that he loves me, and he's sending me all these messages. And I was definitely like, wow, this is amazing that she was able to do this for this man. As a person who has a cousin who has nonverbal autism, the idea that there's a deep, intelligent person inside of him that is just aching to be free is amazing. Until I learned that facilitated communication is not an accepted form of communication, and it has been widely discredited in scientific and medical communities, as it appears that the facilitator is inadvertently influencing and guiding the communication. So rather than the disabled person independently conveying their own thoughts and words, the facilitator appears to be the person that's actually guiding the words. When I was listening to her story, I was completely sold. I was completely bought in. I was like, oh my God, just let them be together. Let them be happy. But when you see the evidence against it and see that there was really no evidence for it, it was really wishful thinking that we all wanted. I couldn't believe the woman. I was like, what fantasy world was she living in? She shared too much about what happened. She definitely had to think that stuff was real, because she ended up incriminating herself. The mom called her and said, what are all the things that you did with my son? And what she essentially described was her having sex with the non-verbal, non-communicative son for the cops to get and record. And I'm like, there's just no way that this woman just thought that she was doing something wrong. There's just no way. There's no way that she could have thought that. And I happened to watch that while I was experiencing derealization. And it just, I don't know, it just felt like it perfectly echoed with what I feel like I'm going through. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Maybe my derealized brain is making connections that aren't there. I'm not really sure. I don't know if that's what was going on with her. She's clearly making connections that weren't there. But I watched Dr. Grande's video on it, and he said it's not real. So I'm like, I don't know what else to believe at this point. Anyway, sorry, the train is really loud. Anywho, if I didn't stray too far with that story, and I really hope that I didn't, as I was seeing that, I just thought, what fantasy world was this lady living in? Because she couldn't have been living in reality. It just really seemed like she genuinely believed it. As for my derealization, I've been without a job for 4 months, and it's been getting to me. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't get unemployment, so I've been completely funding all of this, all of my own life, putting it on credit cards. Every day I wake up with the email that says, your TransUnion credit report has changed. And I'm like, I bet it has. But this past Sunday, I woke up and I had peed my bed. We're close here. We're friends. We're good. Yeah, I had peed my bed. I had a splitting headache, and every muscle in my body was completely weak. At first, I was okay. I talked to my mom. My mom came down here. My mom lives like 40 minutes to an hour away. She took me to urgent care. I don't have any insurance, so she very graciously paid for it because my mom is so fucking awesome. And they said a couple of things. They were like, my vitamin D was low, my thyroid numbers were off. but the only thing I could think of consistently that's done this to me in the past is stress. But I didn't get derealization that day. I think I got it the next day or the day after. I would say I woke up to the peak of it this morning, and I couldn't differentiate between being asleep and dreaming and being awake. Like, they felt similar. I would say being awake definitely felt heavier, felt thicker, felt denser, but I'm getting ahead of myself. What is derealization? I'm just over here describing something without even fully fleshing it out. I'm going to read off a definition because I'm not perfect. Derealization is a dissociative state where you feel detached from your surroundings and reality itself. It's often described as feeling like you're living in a dream, a fog, or a haze. The world around you seems unreal, strange, or unfamiliar, even though your rational mind knows it's real. While the core experience of feeling disconnected from reality is common, derealization can manifest in different ways for different people. Some report visual distortions where objects, colors, or lighting looks flat, dull, or artificial. Got that? Things seeming weirdly distorted in size or shape. Sounds being dull, muted, or coming from far away. I feel like that's happened, but I didn't log it to my memory. I can't explain that either. A feeling of being detached from their own body or thoughts, definitely. I've looked at my hands and been like, whose hands are those? Emotional numbing or difficulty feeling connected to others, yes. My God. Everything seeming lifeless or mechanical, yes, definitely. It definitely feels like that. Despite these odd sensations, there's still an underlying understanding that is not actual reality being experienced. It's a perception issue. Exact distortions in sight, sound, and self-awareness can vary from person to person, and in how severely or precisely their the realization is disrupted, but the overarching sense of disconnection from the real world is the core shared experience. So let's talk about it. Here's the thing too, my memory is absolute shit. I don't remember if I looked up people. I know that I was on Reddit forums because I was just on Reddit forums before I started making this video about derealization. I don't know if I watched any videos on it. Not to say that they don't exist. I have no idea what's happening outside of this very moment. It's very scary, isn't it? It's very scary to think about that you can have a psychotic break, but is that what I've had? I don't feel like I've had a psychotic break. I feel like I had a psychotic crack. Like, I'm still very much aware of reality and I'm sitting in reality. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel viscerally real, if I can explain it. It feels like being in The Sims, or if you play any type of video game. It's like being in a simulation of the real world. I could be in Assassin's Creed right now. Light in particular, light from the sun feels artificial. It doesn't feel real. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. So the symptoms for derealization can occur with certain mental health conditions, can occur with anxiety, which I have constantly, depression, which I also have, PTSD, which I also have, but it can also happen temporarily in response to stress or fatigue, which I guess I was experiencing all of those things in that moment when I peed my pants. You don't have to pee your pants to have derealization. It's just that one preceded the other immediately. Or pee your bed, which is what I did, which was way worse. Rather pee my pants than pee my bed. I had to sleep on my couch for 3 days. That's how bad it was. Yeah, but that's what derealization feels like for me. I would assume that if you're a person who's watching this video, either you're experiencing derealization yourself, or you have a family member that is experiencing it, or a loved one that is experiencing it, and you're trying to understand what they're going through. I know my mom is always asking me, like, what does it feel like? You know, you ever wear beer goggles? It feels like I'm wearing those. Things don't seem quite right. Everything looks simulated. Everything. This rock looks like it could have been made with, I don't know, AI. This candle doesn't look real. Nothing really looks real. Nothing really feels real. I'll say this. I know not everybody who has derealization gets it the same way, but the way that I experience it is a mixture of feeling like I'm trapped in a dream with a mix of feeling like I'm in The Sims, is how I would describe that my experience with realization feels. Like, there are times when it's foggy at the edges of my perception. You know how dreams just like fog off, like they kind of blurry at the edges, but you're not really aware of the blurriness. Sometimes it's also like in a video game. Sometimes it's just too sharp. Sometimes it's too clear. It's too, what's the word? It's definitely sharp. The word is sharp. Crisp. Things look too crisp. Where you expect there to be blurred edges, there's not. Going back to this rock. Maybe going to like this feather. This feather has like some blurry little edges here, but when I'm derealizing, I can't speak for everybody, it just looks, not right now. There might be times where it just looks a little too crisp on the edges, where it looks like it was made by a computer, and that's how I experience it. In terms of how I was triggered by it the first time, this actually is a pretty new phenomenon to me. This first started happening to me, I'm gonna say 2 years ago. When I caught COVID at the end of 2020, I had long COVID for 2 years. And during that time, I started having what I would call episodes. And those episodes would be me having a panic attack. During that panic attack, I would disassociate, where I would feel like I was a different person. Specifically, what would trigger my panic attacks? First of all, anything could trigger my panic attacks. Any stressful event could trigger my panic attacks. My grandma just had a birthday 2 days ago, and actually that was the anniversary of my very first panic attack, because my very first panic attack happened because it was my grandmother's birthday 2 years ago, I think, and she was in the hospital, and her being in the hospital on her birthday stressed me out so strongly that I split from reality. I don't know if this is gonna make sense to anybody. I felt like I was a lieutenant in an army in space. And not only was I a lieutenant in an army in space, I was a gay lieutenant in an army in space. But I was closeted gay. I was a closeted gay lieutenant in space. I was a man also, by the way. I was a man. And I was a gay man. Yes, I was a gay man lieutenant in space. And this is all happening in the span of a moment, mind you. That's how long it lasted. But it's just a feeling that came upon me. Like when you're in a dream and you just take on the role of whatever person you are in the dream, that's what it was like, except I was awake and experiencing it in real life. But I was a gay male lieutenant in space, but I was not out. I was closeted, and I was worried that my secret was going to get out. And I remember being terrified of my secret getting out because I thought that my crew wouldn't respect me anymore. So if you're trying to understand how that story fits in with my grandmother going to the hospital, bitch, I don't know. I don't know what happened. I just know my mother called me and said, your grandma's in the hospital, and it was on my grandmother's birthday, and I'm sitting in the parking lot at Kroger, and the next thing I know, I'm just being sucked out of my body into this other person's experience, into the experience of a gay man in space who is a lieutenant to a captain who is terrified that his crew is about to find out that he's gay because he doesn't want them to lose respect for him, which is so weird because that's not my life at all. So for the longest time, whenever I would experience a stressful event, I would get sucked back into that moment. I would have that episode where I would get sucked out of my body, and then after that, I would have derealization. I could go from having a completely normal, regular day to having an episode and having derealization for freaking 3 days after that. Which I guess I should also say, derealization lasts for days. For me, it lasts for days at least. I've had derealization last for a month before. That sucks, I know. And if you have it and you're ready for it to be over, you probably don't want to hear that shit. But I will say there are things that can help. So my specific instance when it comes to derealization, it gets triggered by stress is what I have consistently seen. I don't always have to have a panic attack. That's what I call those episodes. I think they're panic attacks. This is getting messy. This video is about derealization. A part of my derealization comes with disassociation. So derealization is when you feel like your environment isn't real or detached from your environment. Disassociation is when you start to disassociate from who you are, from yourself. You don't feel real, or you don't feel attached to your body. You might feel like you're just controlling your eyes. That's how a lot of people experience dissociation. That's also how I experience dissociation, but just not in those episodes. In my episodes, I don't experience that, but I experience dissociation like that when I puff on the reefer. That'll make me disassociate. That's actually why I used to just tell people I got paranoid, and that's why I didn't smoke. I didn't know that's what that was called. If you want to know why I don't smoke weed, it's because it makes me disassociate from my body. I feel like my body's a robot and I'm just controlling my eyes. Like I'm in the control room in my eyes, and the rest of my body is like a fucking Gotron or something. Or in Teddy Rick's universe, a GoBot, right? That's what they're called. They're called the GoBots in Rick and Morty, right? I don't know. Anyway. But yes, so that's how it started with that. My specific bag of stuff, I have all of it. I got the anxiety, the PTSD, the depression. And the thing about me is that I didn't have any of that until I got COVID. COVID gave me all of those things. Yes, COVID gave me PTSD. Yes, it did. There were so many nights I thought I was gonna die here by myself. Also, so many of you commented on how much you like my room. Thanks, that's so very sweet. I love it. I worked really hard. I've lived here for such a long time, and I worked really hard to get it to look as cute as it is. Okay, so I really appreciate it. But yeah, no, I mean, living alone, there's definitely the fear of dying all the time. You can choke on something, and that really didn't hit me until I caught COVID. And when I caught COVID and I was like in and out of the ER, it was one of those things where it's like I couldn't really afford to take any chances because I was here by myself. So if something happened to me in my sleep, I was the only person who was here. So it was a very scary time. I did have a friend. It would be remiss if I did not admit that I had a friend during that time. She did not live here. She also probably didn't want to be doing that. And I don't know if she got burnt out from the friendship because of that, but she did not remain my friend after that was over. Guess she couldn't take it. So viscerally, tangibly, derealization feels like right before you wake up from a dream and you have the most control, like right before you wake up, right? You have the most control. You feel like you have agency. For some people, this is when they can start lucid dreaming. It feels like that, but more solid, and you know that it's real. And if you've ever lucid dreamt before, which I have, it's fun. I always have sex in lucid. That's the first thing I'm doing every time. Either that or I'm having superpowers or something like that. But I'm ashamed that I say I go to the sex first. It makes me sound like I have a problem. I don't. But yeah, so if you've ever lucid dreamt before, it feels like that, except you know that you're not dreaming. Like I'm very aware that this is solid. Emotionally, it's definitely scary. You don't know what's wrong with you. Personally, I still don't know what's the mechanism behind it all. What's happening in there? It's definitely super scary. Like right now, it sounds like one of my neighbors is rolling something down the hall. It's freaking me the fuck out. Sometimes it makes me feel paranoid. There are a couple of different weird psychological things that happen with people. When I'm derealizing, sometimes I'll look at a couple of different people and they'll all be looking at me, and I'll be like, the fuck is going on? And then I'll be like, it has to be in my mind because this can't be real. I'll look at complete strangers in a situation that I've never seen them in before, and their faces will look familiar. Like I used to work with them, or I used to go to school with them, or they used to live in my neighborhood, or they used to ride my bus, something weird and highly impractical. And I'll just look at all these strangers and I'll be like, they look familiar. I know him. I know her. And then I start wondering if I'm on the fucking Truman Show. That happens a lot. That's also what derealization feels like. It could be not real. I'm assuming that it's not real, but sometimes I'm like, what if I agree to be in this situation? What if it's like Roy and I'm sitting somewhere in a mall in some type of futuristic society where they can beam a person's life into your brain? What if what's happening when I'm like disassociating and remembering that other guy's life, what if that's my real self? What if I'm like sitting in a mall somewhere? I don't know why it has to be a mall, but I'm assuming it's something fun, and I'm playing like some type of super immersive version of The Sims. And when I get stressed out, I start to like disconnect from the thing. I don't know. You know, like freaking, what if I'm in like an animus somewhere? See, I'm all types of nerd. What if I'm sitting like in an animus somewhere, and you know, what happens in those moments is like when, what's his name? is it DJ? Desmond. And it's like when Desmond first was trying to get into Altair and he was like disconnecting from Altair because, what did they say? That he lacked the confidence to step into his ancestors' shoes. I don't know. It was weird. It was a game. But that's what it feels like. It feels like I'm disassociating, which is why it's called that. My friend came over and hung out with me today. I'm tied to my computer because it doesn't matter. You don't care. I was about to go into super detail about that. I'm tied to my computer, which means I have to sit right here. And she was sitting there on my bed and we were watching Food Wars, and I'm all types of nerd, but we were watching Food Wars, and how did I feel? I think that was the best situation because I wasn't having to talk to her directly. So I didn't have to worry about maintaining a conversation with her. She's actually a really good person to hang out with when I'm having derealization, because she can be a little self-absorbed. I'm not saying that in a negative light, but she can be a little self-absorbed, which means that she's asking me less questions about what I'm going through. Are you okay? I'm like, no, don't ask me if I'm okay. Talk about yourself, okay? Take me out of this freaking hell I'm in. And that was really good. That actually really helped me. As for the impacts that it's had on my daily life, I mean, I can't drive like that when it's as strong. I said it's at its peak right now, but actually it's calmed down. It was at its peak today when I woke up this morning. When I woke up, I felt no visceral difference from my dream world to being awake. I didn't feel like I woke up this morning. It was really more like just my scenery changed. But yeah, for the first 3 days, I couldn't really drive anywhere. I couldn't even leave my house. It's good that it chilled out eventually, and I was able to go to the park and take the dogs there. But I did that intentionally, not because I wanted to. I did that because I was trying to cope, which I'm trying to get to, keep saying other things ahead of it. As far as coping, things that I find that work, I think going to the park helped. Going to the park, walking around, being in nature. I think something that actually did help me was having to interact with people, because it got me out of my head. I went to the park and there were lots of people at the park because today's Juneteenth. There were a lot of people there and I wasn't forced to talk to anybody, but I was having to talk to other people. I told you my friend came over earlier today. I was talking to her, and after I left the park, I was craving watermelon, and I went to Publix, which I forgot I hate Publix watermelons. I went to Publix and got a watermelon, but just the act of having to drive there and park and get out and navigate the store to find the watermelon, it wasn't like a Publix that I was used to going to, so I had to actually really look for it, and then I had to hold it and juggle it and then check out with it and juggle it back to my car. That was a lot. That was a lot of physical exertion and like having to interact in the world, I guess is what I should say. Not just interact with people, definitely interact with people, but just having to interact in the world. And then when I got back, I took my dog out, and when I was down there were other people down there. My friend was down there with her boyfriend, and there was a new person down there, and this new person had the same type of dog that I do. And I had seen them from afar, but I hadn't seen them up close. And I was like, oh wow. And I was just like really immersed in interacting with this dog and learning about this dog and this lady, and she kept saying things that I wasn't prepared for. Like my dog laid on her back and she wanted to be pet. The lady was like, oh, she like having her titties rubbed too? And I was like, I wasn't prepared for you to phrase it like that, and hopefully I didn't make it super obvious. Yes, my dog likes having her titties rubbed. Yes, she does. But having to have that interaction took me out of my head because I was interacting with her. Taking a shower does not help me. Going to sleep? Nah. I've gone to sleep and woke up with it. I told you I've had it for a month, so that definitely doesn't work for me. I would definitely say going for a walk. I think for me, it's doing stuff in the world, but it has to be mentally stimulating and physically stimulating. I think the act of having to juggle a watermelon through a Publix, that was both physically taxing and mentally like stimulating. I was just like, oh, I gotta get in there. But when I'm just in the shower and I'm just standing there and the water is just hitting me, it's a very abstract feeling, especially when you already can't really feel your body. So it's not something that I care for. I don't really care to have the water splashing on me when I'm derealizing. Also, I don't know if that's what people call it. That's what I call it when I'm derealizing. Watching TV, watching that that documentary actually really helped. It actually helped a lot. Specifically, that documentary. I don't know. I think seeing someone who is nonverbal, who is experiencing life with way more hindrances in front of them. The whole time I was watching it, I'm like, man, if this is how I feel, how must he feel? Maybe that's why I felt so sympathetic towards the woman whose name I can't remember. But maybe that's why I felt so sympathetic towards the woman who was the facilitator, because I'm like, I'm there right now. What if he is in like just this a land where he can't like effectively communicate the things that he wants to say and he's trapped inside of his body? Going through derealization just made me feel very sympathetic with what he was going through, which made me think maybe she's onto something, because I feel like this, but I'm able to, what if I couldn't verbalize it? What if I was completely myself in my mind and I couldn't talk? I guess obviously Stephen Hawking is a perfect example of someone like that. And I know it's different because Stephen Hawking didn't have use of his body, but he could independently spell things out for himself. The facilitated communication is the whole problem, is the facilitator, that there's another person there that has to guide them to stuff. So that's the problem with it. And that's not something that Stephen Hawking would have needed. But yeah, I don't know. It just makes me wonder. With therapy, I think therapy would probably help, actually, because every time I talk about it, I feel more grounded. Pretending like it's not happening does not help. Like going on Reddit forums and reading what other people are saying about it helps. Having this conversation right now definitely helps. Man, Alexa's about to turn my lights off. Dumb bitch. Don't do it. Don't turn my lights off. Don't turn my lights off, please. But anyway, I'll just keep talking until she does it, because she always does it. So I'm always filming at the time where she turns my lights off. So as for coping, I would definitely say doing something that stimulates both my mind and body. Maybe playing a video game where your hands have to match up with what you're seeing on the screen. I think that would probably help. Like I said, probably watching a video like this probably would help me. I think taking a walk would definitely help. Unless it's overwhelming to you, I could see that too. But I think maybe going on a walk, probably. Alexa, turn on all my lights. Alexa, turn off my bedroom light.
A couple things share that name, bedroom and bedroom desk.
See, I didn't want to do all that shit. Anyway, but yeah, when I had a therapist, my therapist used to help with derealization. Now I don't have any insurance, so as you can imagine, I have no therapist. So something that is most important to me in terms of derealization, and the reason why I wanted to make this video is because I want to help somebody else who's going through it, who maybe needs to ground. And I just want to remind you, I don't know everybody's particular situation, but from what I've seen, it is harmless. The experience of derealization is harmless. It's most likely caused by psychological stressors or psychological issues. There are a couple of things based on what I have kind of experienced that might help. Doing a puzzle with your hands might help. Watching a documentary that you can get really sunk into, that could help. You know what doesn't help? I watched Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince and both Deathly Hallows movies yesterday. Don't do that. Don't do something that might cause you to question your reality. I did that thinking that it would make the movies more impactful, because I was like, oh, nothing's real anyway. I wouldn't do that. I feel like that probably just extended my derealization. When I watched that much more grounding video today, that was a lot better. Definitely watch some grounding things. What is a grounding thing, really? So I'm going to give you an explanation for grounding. Maybe that would also help you ground. You know exactly what it means. I know we all think we know what it means, but I'll just tell you. The term grounding refers to reconnecting your sense of awareness to the ground of reality around you instead of being trapped in an intensely emotional dissociative or trauma-induced mindset. There are different types of grounding. There's physical grounding, using the 5 senses to feel grounded in your body and physical environment by noticing textures, smells, and taste. This is a terrible example, but this is a candle. This candle is warm. This is a crystal. This crystal is rough. This is a feather. A feather is soft. And this is sage. Sage smells good. Those are a couple examples of grounding. You could do something. This, feel the sound. If you just want to shuffle the cards too, just not feeling. So there's mental grounding, reorienting yourself by observing and describing your surroundings, reciting facts like your name, age, location, or doing mental exercises. So obviously I'm not going to give you my name, age, and location, but you could say, my name is Bree. I'm here in my room. I can give you my age. I'm 32. I'm not ashamed of my age, okay? It is 1 a.m. Can hear the fire crackling behind me on one of those candles. It's a bit noisy, so things like that. So there's also soothing grounding. So comforting your mind and body through positive self-talk, recalling safe memories, or visualizing a calm scene. I really like that, actually. So I guess you would say things like, anything great? What's something great about myself? Positive self-talk. You look really good for 32, Brianna. It's not to say that if you weren't 32, you wouldn't look bad. In fact, when I was in my 20s, 10 years ago when I was 22, I hated my age because I looked like a child. I think people in my family just age a lot slower, which you would think would be great. Actually, I guess it is great because when you're in your 20s, that's when people want to have all their fun and go crazy. And I didn't want to do that in my 20s. I was very much a child. I wasn't really ready to go crazy until I was 30. And by that time, I was old enough to understand that there were repercussions to my actions. And I was mature enough and old enough to handle it. And I had a real job that I could afford to do the things that I wanted to do. See, I guess that's positive self-talk. I brought it back around. And then there's also social grounding, making eye contact with others, having a conversation, or being around people to feel connected to the present. That's exactly what I did today when I was at the dog park and I was talking to everybody down there. I think social grounding probably works best for me to get me grounded. And I think that's just because I'm a social person. Like I have very strong social needs. So I think that, which if you've seen some of my other videos, this is unfortunate, right? The way my life has gone. It's not even that I like people. I need them, unfortunately. People keep my head on straight. Something that I've seen clearly in all of these is you don't want to let yourself dwell in the nether, right? If you disassociate or derealize because of flashbacks, don't let yourself sit in that flashback. Don't let yourself continue to think about those unreal things, those unreal thoughts. So when I went out, I didn't let myself keep looking at people and thinking, I know them, I know that person. And if you're wondering why, it's because you're leaning more into the folly. You're doing the opposite of grounding yourself when you lean into the episode. Even like right now, there are times when I'm talking and I can hear the echo from my voice hitting my ear, and I'm disassociating right now. It's not as bad as it could be. It's been way worse, but I'm disassociating right now. And so I'm hearing my voice hit my ears and it's freaking me out. Like I keep scaring myself. Like I keep startling myself with my own voice. And if I were to focus on that and to focus on how absurd it is that I can hear my own voice in the first place and what the hell is sound, and that's gonna take me to a bad place because it always takes me to a bad place. You know where it's going to take me? It's going to take me to a freaking panic attack where I'm going to start thinking, I don't want my crewmates to find out that I'm actually a gay man. That's where that thought's going to somehow lead me, because that's where all roads lead back to that core memory that I don't even know where that came from. I genuinely don't know. Anyway, I might make another video if this video is not good. I'm not so confident about my video making abilities just because I have an outline before I make these videos, but I'm trying to figure out like what's my flow. They can't keep being this. Right now I'm at an hour recording. I'm probably going to cut it down a lot, but obviously I don't want it to be at an hour. That's just too long. So I really hope this video helps someone. I'm really glad that so many of you are here now. There's 5,000 of you now, and I can't believe it because the other day I just had less than 1,000, and I was like, when I get to 5,000, then it'll mean something and I'll be someone, and I feel the same. But I really am glad to have you here. Definitely subscribe. My voice still sounds weird. Definitely subscribe and ring the bell so you can get more notifications from me. Definitely leave me a comment below. Some of you have been saying that you've been leaving comments for the algorithm. Yes, keep doing that. That is how the algorithm decides whether it wants to push out my content to more people or not. I have friends, actual friends, who will not comment or like my videos because they don't want to mess up their algorithm. And I'm like, that's unfortunate. I don't even know if I'm going to leave that in there. That's not good. It's not good publicity. Anyway, Anyway, but thanks so much for watching. I hope I was able to help you get through whatever you're going through. It's gonna be all right, and the sun will rise. That's the one thing that's definitely gonna happen. The sun will rise. Sorry, this is a weird outro because I'm out of it, and I'm really trying to hold it together. Said I was gonna reward myself with a treat of some kind, so I don't know, maybe I'll have a bowl of cereal or a bowl of ramen noodles. It's a sad, lonely girl treat. Hopefully my voice will be sounding back to normal for me by then. And I will see you next time.